Welcome back to Plebs on Parade, the show where every pleb is a potential philosopher. I'm your host, Timmy Tether, and today we're talking to plebs about North Korea's $1.5 billion Bybit Ethereum hack. Is it good? Is it bad? What do plebs think? Let's find out. It's Timmy Tether again here in Flagstaff, Arizona. We're talking to Nate from Tacoma, Washington. Nate, what are your thoughts on the North Korean Lazarus Group's $1.5 billion Ethereum heist ultimately swapped to BTC in order to bolster North Korea's strategic Bitcoin reserve?
Timmy, let me just say I'm a little embarrassed as a patriotic American and a Republican. The Lazarus Group is running circles around American intelligence agencies when it comes to on-chain prowess. The U.S. Marshals can't figure out the difference between a seed phrase and a passphrase to recover the wallet containing the Bitcoin they stole from Ross Ulbricht. Meanwhile, North Koreans are so elite, Zach XBT finds out about their antics from Simply Bitcoin like the rest of us mere mortals.
All right, thank you, Nate from Tacoma. It sounds like Nate thinks federal agents could use some remedial BTC sessions. Hardware wallet tutorials? Thankfully, there's no shortage of those to review. Our next pleb is Candace Marie from Boise, Idaho. Candace, what are your thoughts on North Korea's growing strategic Bitcoin reserve thanks to this elaborate Bybit hack?
I gotta tell you, Timmy, ever since my gender reassignment surgery, I've been adapting to my new non-KYC hormone supplements I found on Nostr Market. Since becoming a trans woman, I've noticed my time preference fluctuates with more volatility than micro-strategy call options. As a result, I've been getting rug pulled by meme coin scams. I can't help myself. I am hoping to win back what I've lost on Kanye's new Nazi coin. I guess it feels somewhat comforting to know even professional Chinese money laundering exchanges like Bybit are struggling to afford taxes right now.
Interesting perspective from Candace Marie in Boise. We will find out if Donald Trump's new IRS accepts time preference imbalance from taking non-KYC estrogen as a valid excuse for not being able to afford taxes. Good luck on the Nazi coin lottery and stay warm up there in Idaho. Our final pleb is Lee from Albuquerque. Lee, thoughts on the Lazarus Group, the heist, or North Korea? Good, bad, too early to determine?
Let me tell you, Timmy, I always know North Korea is most orange-pilled nation state and OG Bitcoin standard adopter. I read the Lazarus Group, even know how to hack air-gap the hardware wallet. I only use paper wallet for this reason. When I see the hackers ditch shitcoin Ethereum for Bitcoin straight raw dog, not even using Monero first, I know Kim not giving a single fuck. He is laughing at CIA.
Lee thinks North Korea can hack air-gapped wallets and Kim Jong-un is laughing at the CIA? What a time to be alive. That's all for this week, folks. I'm your host, Timmy Tether. Thanks for watching Plebs on Parade.
Now, let's get some dating advice from Maggie Morris.
Mr. Sailor, fly me to the moon. Hello and welcome to Maggie's relationship segment. Let's hear the next dumbass question.
Hey Maggie, my name is Max Bid. I've been dating this girl for about 2 months. She's super hot, but keeps telling me why I should buy Ethereum. I've tried to explain Bitcoin maximalism to her and how Ethereum is an unregistered security, but she doesn't care. I really like her outside of the fact she's a shitcoiner, but I'm afraid to bring her to meetups and conferences. Should I keep trying to date her or do we need to break up? She's the hottest woman I've ever dated, and I'm afraid anyone I date in the future won't be as hot.
Max? What? You need to ask this bitch for regulatory clarity. Either you have dominion over her or you don't. You think she would be with you if you were broke? Are you gonna let her run an Ethereum node in your apartment? What kind of man are you? What kind of person are you? What do you think is going to happen? You're in big trouble. She's going to end up giving your children thousands of bird flu vaccines. Clear cut, pump and dump. We're rooting for you, Max.
Thanks, Maggie. Let's check back with you later.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Supreme Leader of North Korea has officially killed the ultrasound money, Ethereum. In a brutal murder, Yoon's hacker group, known as the Lazarus Group, is suspected of being behind the brutal $1.4 billion hack of the crypto exchange Bybit. Roger Ver is currently assuring users of the platform that they are in fact solvent. The threat posed by the hack is that North Koreans could stake the coins, threatening the Ethereum Foundation's OFAC compliance. The amount of coins amassed by North Korea could be used to try and disrupt the Ethereum consensus model. Users are pleading with Vitalik to once again roll back the chain. but doing so would eliminate any possibilities of anyone believing it was immutable or decentralized blockchain ever again. A North Korean state spokesman stated that
our supreme leader has done more for Bitcoin maximalism with this hack than Corey, David, and Samson Mao combined. Yet he still does not have a speaking slot at the conference in Vegas. The fearless leader is currently converting the Ethereum to Bitcoin in order to bolster our great nation's strategic Bitcoin reserve. The Democratic Republic of North Korea was the first country in the world to establish a strategic reserve. Yet Bitcoin podcasters and conference organizers have not recognized us for it. They instead have chosen to focus on Western imperial mouthpieces like El Salvador, and even supporting shitcoiners like the president of Argentina. It is time for North Korea to be recognized for innovation when it comes to adopting Bitcoin, and for our supreme leader to be recognized the world's first Bitcoin president.
as an objective, credentialed journalist, I find it quite confusing that the DPRK has not been recognized. David Bailey has the opportunity to finally give him the recognition that he deserves, instead of solely platforming shitcoiners like Donald Trump. If Dennis Porter and Kim Jong-un are not allowed to speak at the conference, it will be a massive strategic mistake that will severely slow the adoption of Bitcoin.
Welcome back to Bugle Weekly, the #1 Bitcoin podcast for people who listen to 40 hours per week. Thank you for joining us again. It has been a huge week. The political headlines and the political jockeying on social media and the internet with headlines has never been hotter. And we're going to jump into some of that today. But the big news is Kim Jong-un. The past few weeks, the headlines have been dominated by Elon Musk, President Trump, and they are setting the tone for international trade, politics, getting rid of woke DEI, dismantling the CIA, just changing up the New World Order a great deal. And Kim Jong-un in North Korea just used this past week to remind everybody who daddy is when it comes to being the Bitcoin leaders of the world, the first sovereign adopter of the Bitcoin standard. Of course, North Korea. They run circles around Mossad, and they run circles around the CIA. They run circles around PodConf, and sometimes they just have to come out and flex on it, and it really, really upsets the feds. The U.S. Marshals have lost the Bitcoin that they were supposed to keep track of. They can't give Doge and Donald Trump an accurate representation of their account balance because they don't know how to use to connect their node and check their addresses. They're scrambling to figure it out. They're watching BTC sessions tutorials just so they can report they're sacked the president. And North Korea is hacking $1.4 billion worth of shitcoins just to flex on everybody, taking those shitcoins, going to decentralized peer-to-peer exchanges, not even considering Monero, much to the Monero community's chagrin, and just converting it straight to Bitcoin and adding to their already the largest strategic Bitcoin reserve. America was up big, and then it all started to fall apart when they lost the hockey game to Canada. And now the world is being reminded that the Lazarus Group is in the Eastern Hemisphere. They're the ones that run Bitcoin. They are the dominant sovereign state on chain. And it's just been a kind of a trend of L's being taken by the United States, being taken by Donald Trump, being taken by the feds. What is your reaction to all of this this drama?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think for our listeners to understand, Satoshi Nakamoto and some people speculate on whether Kim Jong Un or Lazarus Group is Satoshi Nakamoto. But Satoshi Nakamoto essentially paved the way, showing people that you can accomplish great things through roundabout ways. So North Korea has been a laughingstock compared to the U.S. aid, or when covered by the U.S. aid funded media. There's been a very skewed perspective on them. And as we know, in Bitcoin media, there's no problem with criticizing or failing to criticize kind of Orwellian totalitarian policies by world leaders if they like Bitcoin, right? But there's been an absence of representation of Kim Jong-un and North Korea's adoption of Bitcoin. They were the first country in the world to adopt Bitcoin. I don't understand why, people haven't given them more recognition, because if any country in the world really lives into the cypherpunk ethos, it is the Democratic Republic of North Korea, the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea. They have democracy in their name, so there's no reason why HRF shouldn't support them. They are really taking that kind of Satoshi-led vision and approach of being cypherpunks. They're not trying to challenge the U.S. military head on. And I think this is what Satoshi realized, was you cannot challenge the Federal Reserve and the fiat monopoly over money head on. You had to go about it in a roundabout way. And so I'm really frustrated. I don't understand why they're not getting the coverage, why they're not getting invitations to speaking slots. And this is a huge moment. There's a lot of emphasis on celebrating Bitcoin maximalism, but the reality is that the DPRK really has done significantly more for Bitcoin maximalism than Corey, than David, than Terrence Yang, than Predator, than Dick Whitman, than all these guys combined. And I don't really want to, the listener knows our ethos. We're not really about sipping for politicians, but I just want to hold the guys that do sip for politicians accountable to have fair standards.
Yeah, North Korea is one of the convenient go-to scapegoats that people in the United States that are, associated to the U.S. government, or the people who have to simp for the U.S. government in order to afford taxes. One of them is Iran. Anytime they, somebody associated with like Mossad needs to deflect from their mistakes or their, controversy in the news, they blame Iran for something. Consequently, at the larger scale, the CIA, the FBI, people in PodConf who were closely in compliance with those agencies, whenever they need to blame and deflect from their own failings, they like to blame North Korea. Ideally, they could blame China in most situations, but because China has demonstrated the fact that they think they can ban Bitcoin and they think that they're, they can censor the blockchain, it's foolish. But we can't use that in Bitcoin terms. We can't blame China, but we can blame North Korea. North Korea is the other scapegoat, the pariah. So anytime North Korea uses Bitcoin in a very efficient, thermodynamically sound way that gets around some of these U.S. compliance and money laundering laws, it's one of those things like the CIA is barely able to do it. That's why the CIA is stuck using an illiquid shitcoin like Monero, because they just can't, they don't have the skills necessary to transact adversarially on chain without Zach XBT calling them out and exposing them and getting them dunked on Twitter. So they can't give North Korea the props they need, because if they were open and honest about how good North Korea is transacting adversarially and how good of a Bitcoiner Kim Jong-un is, Americans and Westerners would simp for Kim Jong-un instead of Donald Trump. They would simp for Kim Jong-un instead of Bitcoin Magazine. They would simp for Kim Jong-un instead of being Monero influencers. It's, in a lot of ways, they feel intimidated and they feel belittled and less like men, that Kim Jong-un and the Lazarus Group are able to pull off the biggest heist in history and just do it in front of everybody's face and just completely bridge to Bitcoin and not even give a shit that those UTXOs were blacklisted, because they can just create their own mining pool or work with them. They can launder it somehow and be okay with it. And the CIA is stuck slowly filtering money through Monero and experiencing slippage and just unable to operate on even a fraction of the scale as efficiently as the North Koreans.
Mm-hmm. I kind of imagine those are all really good points and reasons for why they likely aren't covering this story. I think part of it too is that North Korea represents decades and decades. I think when did the ceasefire happen in North Korea? Like 1952, I think, the Korean War.
Yeah. It was in the 1950s. So for those of people who don't know, the North Korea and South Korea, that war, there was no ending to it. It's still technically going today. However, there's been an armistice, a truce, a ceasefire that was agreed upon 60, 70 some years ago, and that exists today. That's why we talked about the podcasting booth at the 38th parallel. That's the only place where North Koreans and South Koreans can have like a spaces type conversation.
Yeah, I just want to point out the failures and the stupidity of American foreign policy over these years. So we all know the recent history of the disaster, which was the war on terror. We all know that the U.S. government simultaneously was funding ISIS and Al-Qaeda while they were bombing them. That's been an ongoing disaster. It'll continue to be a disaster. But I can't think of anything more retarded than invading a communist country, because essentially what you do, so the Americans invaded North Korea, and they went and they mercilessly murdered like 10% of their population, right? Now, if you wanted to ensure that population would embrace communism and just embrace these ideologies, it would be by going and destroying all the infrastructure and killing a tenth of their population. We know that the communists are already going to kill 10%, 20% of their population by themselves. You don't need to add to it. You don't need to solidify their legitimacy whatsoever. All you really have to do is you have to sneak Bitcoin podcasts across the border. And we talked about this on the episode with Boomer about the way to reunite North Korea is to turn the famous 38th parallel, the area where the North and South Korea leaders meet periodically, in that office where Donald Trump went gallivanting into North Korea into his podcast studio, and it would reunite it, rather quickly. And so the only thing that I could really come to a conclusion on is that the puppet masters behind the American government probably actually appreciate communism. They appreciate the turmoil and the conflict, and it's just absurd. Like, if you leave the communists to their own devices and you actually have a better product in freedom and democracy, all you really got to do is just show these North Koreans that we have Marlboros. We have the better cigarettes. We've got the better thinkers. We've got the better music. We've got the Jews in Hollywood that they don't.
Right, indeed. The last, back to your point, it is the biggest mistake that you can make international relations wise with a communist country. It's the same that it's a little different, but it's the same basic scenario as what we're doing with Europe right now. We have subsidized the European military, the European military industrial complex, their defense, everything. So they can spend all their money on bribing and paying people with government handouts to support the state. We're making it easier for the big brother state in Europe to exist by subsidizing it so they can give what they claim are free services. So if you take a communist government and you subsidize the communist government by killing their people for them, well, that gives them more money to develop nuclear weapons, to buy Bitcoin for a strategic reserve, to train the Lazarus Group hackers to be the best hackers and the best Bitcoin users. I mean, all those guys do is listen to Bitcoin podcast and hack and learn how to use and transact adversarially, because the North Korean government doesn't have to spend any money killing their own people. We do it with sanctions. We kill their people for them, and that frees up like 90% of their budget so they can do other things.
Yeah. I mean, you just look at every communist country that the U.S. invaded and how much of a disaster it was. So there was the Bay of Pigs in Cuba. That was a complete disaster. Guess what? They're still communists. You know why they're still communists? Because the CIA tried to invade them.
And now what you've done is you've subsidized the killing of Cuban citizens by sanctioning them and invading them. And now U.S. cigar manufacturers are embarrassed and, second rate to the Cuban cigar industry. They don't have to spend any money killing their own citizens. They can focus on making great non-KYC tobacco products.
Yeah.
The jewel of the world. And you've destroyed your own industry locally, domestically, for ideological bullshit.
I would argue that Cuban cigars are a national security interest of the United States, and that it definitely makes sense to be friendlier with them and to not sanction them, because
right.
We know the communists are going to make their people starve, right?
Right.
And the sanctions are just a scapegoat for them to blame their starving citizens on the United States and their foreign policy. Like, just let the communists starve themselves and don't give them a scapegoat. Don't give them an easy out. Prove things through the market instead of, these coercive tactics. It's just, it's really absurd. But, Vietnam's the same way. Vietnam's still communist. Why they're communist? Because the United States invaded them and they gave their people a reason to remain communist. It's just like the United States never directly invaded Russia, right? And guess what? They fell apart. The Soviet Union fell apart. But all these countries that the United States invaded, guess what? They're still communist. And it's because their propagandists and their journalists and their leaders could point to the United States and say, here's the big enemy that we're protecting you from. And in many ways, they're real. But like, if you get Kim Jong-un at the Bitcoin conference, he's going to see all these people. He's going to be doing lightning transactions.
Yeah. Nobody would ever vote or choose to live in a communist society if a communist society left to its own devices. when the U.S. government is able to intervene, put sanctions, embargoes, cut them off from the SWIFT system, bomb their country, kill their people, you give them the scapegoat to blame the United States instead of communism. Well, people don't realize that the communism ended, so all they do is this tax and steal the private wealth and the private property of all their citizens, blame it on the United States, and use the proceeds to buy Bitcoin. And that is a national security. And we talked about this before. Smoking tobacco, smoking non-KYC cigarettes and cigars. That is the secret to being able to think for yourself and not be a simp for politicians. And when you try to ban that substance domestically, you can't cut yourself off from the truth. You can't ban the truth. You can only ban your access to the truth. And so people no longer look to the United States for truth. They're getting their tobacco from communists. Mm-hmm. And they smoke a really good Cuban cigarette or cigar, and they think for themselves, and they credit communism for that insight. And it's because of what the United States has done.
Well, and not only that, you look at another part of the United States foreign policy, which has been to try and turn everybody gay and transgender over the past recent while.
Right. And try to turn everybody gay and retarded, and then pivot to drugging them financially with Solana coins.
Yeah. Well, if you look at these communist countries, they have, like, China and Vietnam and Cuba, they all have very high populations of smokers, which means their population is very based. But the way that those communist governments can essentially neuter the based nature of their citizens is to direct it at an enemy, which is the United States. And it completely, this is I don't know what the tactic is, or called, maybe like a red herring would be the way that you would describe it. But the United States keeps on giving reasons to not be taken very seriously. And you just have to let the people come to their own conclusions in these countries that are communist, and eventually, and rather quickly, it will fall apart.
Yeah, the United States, their follies and mistakes in foreign policy towards communist countries, they used to be able to afford or get away with it to a certain extent because we had a Hollywood, a CIA op running Hollywood that was creating such good culture that the Chinese or the Russians or whoever they were being persecuted, and their governments were blaming the United States. Well, the only real access they had to information or knowledge about the United States was our movies and our culture. So they would see that and realize, well, the government says that the United States is to blame for all of our problems, but it looks awesome. It looks based. Everybody looks hot. They have nice homes. Like, America seems badass. And then when the CIA just lost its way and was using Hollywood to try to make everybody into woke and gay retards, well, then these communists, they were looking at American culture and they're like, well, things aren't great for me. I can't afford my taxes, and I can't even afford to eat every day. But at least I'm not like a American fag. Like, that's the most retarded culture I've ever seen, and it makes them happy to live in an oppressive, brutalist, shitcoiner, intolerant society.
Yeah, I mean, the average North Korean is looking at America right now, and they're watching Donald Trump launch shitcoins on Solana. And they're watching their president do some pretty significant damage to Ethereum and convert it into Bitcoin and just grow their strategic reserve. The oldest strategic reserve in the world, nation state strategic reserve in the world, in North Korea. Like, that's a point of national pride over there. In the United States, like, can't even give any regulatory clarity on what their strategic reserve is. They're like, oh, the coins that we stole from somebody else, we're just not going to sell it. And the North Koreans are actually expanding. How many days are we into Donald Trump's presidency at this point? Like 60 days or so? A couple months?
No, it's barely been 1 month.
Oh, really? Wow. Well, it's just how quickly.
Yeah, 33 days. 33 days.
Yeah. And what they're watching is an unelected official in Elon Musk is running around with a government agency that's named after a shitcoin, accessing individual citizens' data without being elected.
Right. And think about if you are hesitant to care about the North Koreans or the Asians or people living under those repressive Asian. I mean, there's a lot of people who think that it's just in the nature of Asians to be a more collective-minded people. So we just think that, oh, they don't care. They don't even like libertarian podcasts. They've never watched Alex Jones. They wouldn't like that anyway. So they're probably not even that unhappy in their circumstance. But think about people in countries like England and Europe, where they are slowly descending, and maybe some of them are too far gone into this communism. You won't be able to go. Their kids won't be able to go visit and backpack through Europe after they graduate high school, because it's going to be a communist shithole. And as it's happening, as their memes are being banned, they're looking at the United States and they're seeing the opposite. They're saying, well, total freedom of speech is like, the alternative, but Elon Musk and Kanye are so cringe and so unthoughtful with their memes that they're like, well, that's fucking gay and retarded. Like, I guess it's not that bad that they're banning memes. Like, it just means we won't have Elon and Kanye doing Nazi content. And this is not a good time to be setting a bad example if we want our European neighbors and allies to survive this communist takeover.
Well, talk about giving the communists more ammunition. You got Elon and Steve Bannon doing the Nazi salute. And we haven't published this yet, but we did receive a leaked memo that outlined that David Bailey was floating the idea of how much engagement he could get by doing a covert Nazi salute. And
right.
As a state-ran media mouthpiece, I think that's incredibly offensive to the communists. And they don't.
Yeah, thank God for Rizzo and Shinobi shooting that down before that got too much traction.
Yeah, I think it's a really. This is the importance of the intellectual Silk Road. This is the importance of the truly independent value for value Bitcoin podcaster. Is they're not engaging in these types of shenanigans that PodConf is. It's really disconcerting to me that just all the bullshit that's going on right now. I really hate it. We deserve more. The podcast listener deserves more. The conference attender deserves more. The American citizen deserves more. We should have a higher standard than putting up with our president's shitcoining. Elon Musk was running around with Malay. The government's ran by shitcoiners.
Yeah, it's, the first maybe 2 weeks of the presidency of Trump's administration, Ross was freed from prison. The CIA was, and the IRS were everybody's going to be fired. USAID was dismantled, and it was, very, people who didn't like Joe Nakamoto, they were happy that YouTube was not full of this content after that. But we were starting to feel really patriotic and like people really feeling good about the potential of becoming first-time taxpayers. And there was just a lot of reason to be feeling really good about this country. And then we just get this reminder that, North Korea and these communist countries are ahead of us. They are ahead of us culturally, ahead of us financially, ahead of us on chain. Their incentives are much more aligned than we thought they were. And ours are much less aligned than we thought they were. And yeah, we're going to be continuing. I don't know if you have any final thoughts, but I did want to use this as a time to pivot to things a little bit more upbeat and a little bit more timely, including Maggie Morris's dating advice this week.
No, I don't have any more to add. I've said my bit about it, and I don't really want to talk a whole lot about this topic anymore because it is discouraging to me to see our nation in such a weak position, to see an overemphasis on shitcoining, on Tether, and not as much of an emphasis on the strategic reserve. We live in probably the most surveilled country in the world when it comes to the capabilities of the NSA. And I agree. I think a good pivot into Maggie Morris's dating advice is perfect.
Dear Maggie, my name is Sam, and I'm a 36-year-old hot and rich privacy enthusiast. I haven't gone on a date in 2 years. I have Tinder in my browser so they won't spy on me, but they're thwarting my exposure to force me to download the app. The few girls who still like the only 2 photos of me in existence blocked me when I told them I don't have Instagram or Facebook. Should I give up and become an incel?
Hey Sam, no, definitely don't give up. A good option for you would be to look for a girlfriend on the darknet. There are several dating sites on the darknet where you can meet people with similar hobbies. I've also heard that Signal is going to come out with a privacy-oriented dating app. But if I could offer some counterintuitive advice as well, I think one of your best options is Reality. Reality has a really good interface, and just like cash transactions, it has the best privacy and the lowest fees. If you go places where you can meet girls in real life, they will be able to hook up with you without Big Brother even knowing about it. And I think that you'll have a girlfriend in no time.
What were your thoughts on the callers this week? So we have the dude dealing with the Ethereum shitcoiner girl that he's been dating. I don't know. I guess I'm glad we have Maggie for the relationship advice, because I'm running out of ideas for how to talk to guys who can't deal with this.
Well, I feel like you almost need Maggie's dating advice because you were fooling around with Miss Hoddlenot. You know what I mean?
But you know, that is, I'm not above getting advice from a girl, but I would say that I felt like I was always one step ahead in the checkers match with Miss Hoddlenot. Although the drama was certainly not, there's a lot of hours of Bitcoin podcasts that I probably could have been listening to instead of dealing with her bullshit.
Yeah. I think it's a great addition to the show, and I'm excited to see what Maggie has in store for us in the future, because I do think there's a lot of orange cells out there that really need some good advice from a woman. But yeah, I mean,
yeah, and I was just going to say that there's not a lot of women out there who listen to 40 hours Bitcoin podcasts per week, so it's difficult to find that matriarchal perspective when it comes to relationship advice and dating from a female perspective. So I think that her insights will be invaluable, and I think a lot of people who listen to this podcast will benefit from Maggie's advice.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, so here's what I would say. You just pointed out the issue. There's not enough women listening to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts a week. And I just want to shout out BTC Sessions. because I think him posting shirtless 6-pack pictures, like if you want more women in Bitcoin, then you have to be attractive physically, and you have to post pictures of yourself. We're not seeing that from Stefan Livera. We're not seeing that from Saifedean. We're not seeing that from Peter McCormick. You know, Peter McCormick is like the opposite. Like, it would actually drive women away from Bitcoin if he posted shirtless pictures. You know what I mean?
Do you think that yellow is, you know, a little yellow cartoon fluff doll because he has a six-pack in real life? I don't know. It's there's more to being a Bitcoin podcaster, and that not everybody wants to be a role model. You used to see it all the time when an athlete would get in trouble, like Dennis Rodman would get in trouble, and he'd be making headlines, and reporters would ask him, do you think that you're setting a good example as a role model? He said, I don't want to be a role model. Well, but when it comes to being a Bitcoin podcaster, you don't hit record and start talking into that mic until you've accepted that you're going to be a role model. And part of that role model role is physical fitness. I mean, we talked to Boomer. Physical fitness is a huge part of being able to consistently put in your 40 hours per week. And it's you can't separate the two. You just can't.
Definitely. It's, yeah, you if you really want more women, and the reason why we want more women in Bitcoin is so that these men don't have to deal with these questions of whether or not they should date super hot shitcoiners.
Right, you won't have people simping for Leia Halpern and just any chick that comes in and starts hawking a meme coin or some shit coins. You guys won't just be following her because they'll have good orange billed Bitcoin only attractive women who listen 40 hours per week, and they get it. They get it, and they're hot. And it's just, you know, the community could just use it so badly.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's a lot of Bitcoin podcasters that are really insecure about all these women coming into the podcasting space, like the Leia Halperns, like the Kaylee Welches, like let's see, who else is really notable and hot?
Aubrey Strobel,
but I would say Isabella is the new one on the scene. You know, she's out
100%.
She's posting pictures in her booty shorts with her six-pack out. And I think we, instead of getting intimidated as male Bitcoin podcasters, we need to take it as a challenge, right? We need to be hotter than the women. And it's doable. You look at these celebrities like Tom Cruise, for example. You ever see those old interviews of Tom Cruise, how women just like practically drop their panties and they scream when he comes in to Oprah.
They couldn't keep a poker face.
Yeah. I mean, imagine how satisfying that would be as a based cigarette smoking hot Bitcoin podcaster to walk in a room to be invited on Oprah and just have all these women losing their minds. Like that's the opportunity that we have. And you look at BTC sessions. Guess who was the one guy that was doing 100 push-ups a day until 100K?
Right.
Stuck with it.
Right. And it shows. It's and when you put in that proof of work, it shows. You don't have to do anything but let people take it in and enjoy it.
Like him or not, Robert Breedlove's drawing more women into the space.
Yeah.
Than probably the majority of Bitcoin podcasters. Way more women than Peter McCormick is. That's for sure.
I mean, look at you think it's difficult, or maybe you just don't have the time or the energy. But you look at Larry Lepard. Larry Lepard is, he's old enough to be he's old enough to be Isabella's grandfather. And he still goes to CrossFit, and he still does burpees, and he still does 100 push-ups, and he crushes it and goes for runs every day. And it's, you just have to do it.
Look at RFK Jr.
Absolutely. It's,
yeah.
That's, RFK Jr. is a Bitcoiner. Some people accuse him of doing testosterone or steroids. Well, guess what? Sometimes you need non-KYC supplements to get in the best shape. I mean, maybe you don't need non-KYC supplements if you, are just an accountant and you don't have a Bitcoin podcast. But if you're going to be putting out a Bitcoin podcast, especially on video, and you're going to be at conferences, if you need non-KYC supplements to be the role model that Bitcoin men are looking towards, that's your responsibility.
I'm not addicted. I can stop whenever I want.
It doesn't affect my career or my family. I have it under control.
I haven't lost very much money. Plus, it's only temporary until the government provides regulatory clarity.
It's just something I do for fun. I don't have a problem.
Do you or a loved one have a meme coin problem? It's more common than you think. 1 in 5 people suffer from meme coin gambling addiction. It's a financial epidemic ruining families and destroying low time preferences. Even highly educated people can fall victim to this paralyzing affliction. But there's hope. If you notice someone close to you exhibiting signs of being a retarded meme coin speculator or suspect they are being brainwashed by the CIA, you can help them. All it takes is listening to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts per week to stabilize their time preference and get it back to healthy levels so they can live a full and happy life. Don't let meme coin addiction destroy your community. Normalize 40 hours per week and let your loved ones know they have support. Nobody deserves to be retard liquidity.
Yeah. These men many of the men are distracted. They're spending all this time getting excited about Michael Saylor. And they're forgetting that, I think they feel discouraged. They feel discouraged to say there's no women in Bitcoin to impress. So instead, we're just going to turn and be gay and simp for Michael Saylor. And the correct thing to do is to not become gay for Michael Saylor. The correct thing to do is to hit the gym, smoke some cigarettes, quit being a pussy, make your bed, have some self-respect, listen to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts a week, and actually be an attractive person that women want to be with.
Exactly. We talked about this before. Becoming trans because it's easier to sell meme coins, or being gay because, it's too hard to be in really good shape and be hot like BTC sessions if you're a Bitcoin bot. But if we accept that, we're no better than the normie mainstream who, got us in the situation we're in right now. I mean, turning gay, turning trans, so you don't have to be in the military, so you don't have to afford your taxes. It's excuse after excuse. We just have to, take it personal responsibility and take accountability. That's what we have to do.
Yeah, use your brain and think ahead. This is the mindset of having low time preference right here. Is don't take the easy out of simping for Michael Saylor. Really try to improve your life. Really try. We know that everybody's been inundated with fiat food. Everybody's been depressed and probably drinking more than they should. But that's not enough. You found Bitcoin and you feel a little bit better about the world and you own some MicroStrategy stock. That's not enough. There's a whole world to build on top of that. You're not going to get your citadel built by owning MicroStrategy alone.
The answer to being able to get your dick up and get it hard is to lower your time preference and listen to Dennis Porter, or, appreciate what Dennis Porter and his approach and his style, his feng shui. It's not to get the gay penis pump, which is MicroStrategy shares, and hope for some crazy 28% rip and then up and up and up and up. That's a fake. It's a fake high. It is going to come back down. It's just not worth it.
Agreed. Well, before we go into the fountain boost, I wanted to talk about our clothing. We got a Bitcoin conference coming up. We got multiple Bitcoin conferences coming up. And I think the 40 HPW line and the Compline line are some of the best ways to really stand out in a crowd full of simps. So go over to orangelabel.co, scroll through all the different product offerings we have.
Yeah. We're thinking about more designs and like more ideas for 40-hour per week t-shirts, for just Bugle verse type t-shirts. And one of the things when we think is it'd be, there's a lot of people who probably feel disgusted by PodConf and the Bitcoin conference and just like the simping of politicians that we talked about. We beat a dead horse basically on this episode. But some people have been thinking that, hey, I would be able to go to a PodConf event if, I was able to not show that I'm not a simp. If I had to, fuck Elon Musk, or fuck Donald Trump, or fuck Tether, those, whether explicitly that or, the theme, shirts like that, they would be willing to go show their faces in politician Fedland. So, if that's something you would want, and you want a Bugle fuck Donald Trump t-shirt, let us know, because we might make a bunch of those and they'd be really hilarious.
Yeah. We're definitely going to be in Vegas. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we'll have some announcements to make before the conference. We're kind of waiting on some things behind the scenes to get flushed out. I know a lot of people aren't excited about going to the conference itself and going through TSA and having to potentially get screened by the Secret Service to participate in the conference and speak on stage. So what I'm hoping for is to have some alternatives, because that's what Bitcoin is about. It's about having an alternative to going through TSA. And stay tuned for that. Big things coming. We've got big plans ahead. But yeah, we're kind of coming towards the end of the second month of this year. I think we got some big things on the horizon with some collaborations that you'll be seeing here in the future. One of the things that I'm really excited about next month is the second round of March Maxi Madness. You prepared for that, Rod?
I've been excited about this since last year's Maxi Madness, and I know it is one of everybody's favorite things to do. I was just interacting with somebody today. I think it was BTC Pens. I was excited for the the tournament. So let us know what you think the tournament, what we should add to the tournament this year, because it's going to be the biggest one ever.
Yeah, DM us if you want a shot to be in the tournament. If you think you have what it takes, DM us or DM us a nomination. We're pretty easy to reach. We've got email, we've got Telegram, we've got Twitter DMs open. Let us know what you're thinking. we, at the end of the day, have editorial discretion. But yeah, Yellow won last year. Yellow is definitely going to be
Yeah,
one.
he took Yellow defeated Michael Saylor in the championship. And Michael Saylor was, he was directing his scent to vote. They still lost. So it goes to show you that the Bugle's Maxi conference is not, there's no PodConf foot on the scale holding it down so that somebody like Peter McCormick or Michael Saylor can win. This is a truly unique conference, or I keep saying conference, a truly unique tournament.
I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to it. Will Yellow win again this year? That's a real question.
Can he defend his Maxi trophy?
We shall see. We shall see. It's going to be stiff competition.
He doesn't have to. He's not having to do his spaces every single day, so he's got more time to prepare.
Yeah. I kind of have my eyes on Dennis Porter. I think Dennis Porter has a pretty good shot at taking it home this year. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, that is a dark horse for sure. I mean, nobody has elevated their game more in the past year than Dennis Porter.
Last year, he definitely did not have all these Bitcoin strategic reserve bills introduced in all these state legislatures. So,
but he's racking up the L's in the when it gets to the vote. So far, I think he's over 5.
But I don't think that has anything to do with Dennis. I know we talked about this last week, and I think this is a good segue into the boost from last week. It's not Dennis Porter's fault. It's David's fault. David hasn't given him a platform at the conference. Absolutely despicable. Dennis Porter is an absolute hero. He is going to be the future president of the United States, and he's orange pilling way harder than anybody else.
I think when it comes down to it, if the TSA is welcomed with open arms at your conference and Dennis Porter is banned, I think you just have to reassess your priorities, shake it up.
I agree. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they're building the conference once again around shitcoiners, and they're not promoting the greatest defenders of Bitcoin like Dennis Porter and Kim Jong-un. Absolutely despicable. But it's a free market. We'll see what happens. The Bitcoin conference might not always be the greatest conference in the world. Might not be the biggest. We might see the free market deliver on this one. But yeah, let's get into the fountain boost. Our first boost from our good friend FOMO Chronics got a nice, looks like a San Pedro cactus in their profile picture, 1,001 sats. And it's a comment with a link. So I assume they posted our episode on Noster.
Thank you, FOMO Chronic. The next one, it says on the screen here, it says anonymous, but it's from Beliza at fountain.fm. Have 2 KYC free SIGs on me, or wait a couple of years and get a whole pack from the Indian reservation. Hell yeah. Thank you for the bed. That's it goes back to why we, solicit the fountain boost in the first place. It's because cigarettes are getting expensive, and this is what we're doing it for. Yeah.
I want to clarify, a cigarette is 1,000 sats, and maybe we're due for a repricing. So that would be pretty crazy if cigarettes hit 500 sats or 505 sats. I don't know. Does anybody, I'm curious from our listeners if anybody has TA on historic Bitcoin to cigarette exchange rates, because I would like to see
that'd be good. that'd be a good data set to incorporate into any. Well, it'd be a good data set to have, but I'd like to put that into a chat GPT type LLM.
Yeah, totally. I wanted to ask you this before on Fomochronic's or Blizza's boost. Can you talk about the campaign you're running on Noster with the guys at Pleb Chain, the Good Morning campaign?
Yeah. The good friends of the show, Quiet Warrior and Avi Burra, are of Pleb Chain Radio, great Noster-based podcast with Bitcoin as well. They're kind of in a competition, not an open competition, but an inherent competition with Odell to kind of win influence. Odell's kind of like the PodConf of Noster. And Pleb Chain Radio is the intellectual Silk Road's like most active army on Noster. And a way that they kind of like when you do the 40 hours per week hashtag, are doing one. It's 40 good mornings per week. So Noster's big on the good morning GM post in the good morning memes every morning to connect and start talking about Bitcoin podcast and Noster and such. But so look for that if you want to connect more with the intellectual Silk Road and some of the Bugle Bitcoin podcast listeners on Noster. And maybe you're just looking to get more involved in Noster and you're looking for that community to start off with. Look for the hashtag 40GNW, especially in the morning. And kind of tell people good morning, reply to their post, tell them good morning, talk to the Pleb Chain crew, talk to the Bugle listeners, and get integrated. There's like if you've been bullied off of Bitcoin Spaces or basically Bitcoin Spaces every day, the Feds lost their funding, so they've all kind of fallen apart. There's alternatives. There is the Spaces, the Noster versions, Nests, Noster Nest, Corny Chat, things like that. You can get involved, and there's way less shitcoiners on there.
That's great. I think we all long for platforms with less shitcoiners. You use Twitter right now. It's all Elon Musk. Every third post, I don't even follow him. Every third post, Matt Odell, he's kind of like the Elon of Noster in a lot of ways. You called him PodConf of Noster, but it's almost like the platform's being manipulated to promote him in this like little PodConf ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Dorsey gonna got cucked by Elon Musk on Twitter. Now it's happening to Odell on Noster.
Yeah, we want to see guys like Pleb Chain Radio really, grow and be successful, and they are doing a good job of battling the forces of PodConf on that fledgling platform. And I don't know, it seems like is Noster working better? Is it easier to use? Are you finding it?
Yeah. I think Primal is starting to, at least the mobile app, Primal. But honestly, I've been having a lot of stressor, curse-free days using Noster lately. I don't have to curse out or smoke an extra cigarette just to deal with it. It's getting better, so it's worth checking out. Especially just hook up your wallet. Set up your wallet on Primal, load up some sats, and boom, zap. It's fun. It's addicting.
Even if it's not better UX, people need to realize that the revolution won't have good UX. It's going to be difficult to use these products. If you really want to be changing the world, you need to be using products with bad UX. At the end of the day, like this is what Bitcoin has really taught us.
Right. And it's It's also kind of, if something is not inconvenient, then it's not secure. So if you're constantly having to like switch over, use two-factor auth, remember your private keys. If it's not annoying, you don't have to make if you don't have to make a titanium steel plate backup of your NSEC or your password, your private keys, it's not secure. And if it doesn't have bad user experience, it doesn't have bad UX, it is not cypherpunk.
Mm-hmm.
So part of being a cypherpunk is it's like being somebody who does jujitsu or is a surfer. Nobody respects you if you haven't gone through the pain and the suffering and the bad user experience to still tell somebody anywhere in the world, peer to peer, no matter where they live, no matter what their language, no matter what their regulatory clarity is like in their country, to tell them good morning, to tell them to listen to Bitcoin podcasts and just encourage each other. Like that is the social connection. Just telling somebody good morning that lives in China is a revolutionary act. And you know it's a revolutionary act because the user experience is shitty, but you're doing it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, look at Fountain. Fountain's the perfect example
Right.
of shitty user experience and changing the world.
Lightning Network, perfect example.
Well, I know a lot of people like to get offended when you say that Lightning Network has bad UX, but let's be honest, guys. If you're being if you're being intellectually honest with yourself, we all know that Lightning has bad UX. Even Donald Trump had a failed his very first Lightning transaction. They had issues. Drew Armstrong had to rip his phone out of his hand in order to make the transaction work to pay for a hamburger. That's the revolution right there. The bad UX.
Exactly. Front and center.
Back to the boost. BTC on board, hashtag LEnhance or CTV. 1,000 sats says fire emoji, fire emoji, fire emoji, lightning, lightning, lightning. Alrighty. Thank you.
Now we're on Pink Monkey 500 saps. It's Dennis Porter's world. We're just living in it. That is a great summation of, I would say, the bull market thus far.
Yeah. Anonymous said the same thing, so I assume it was a accidental bad double zap or double boost by Pink Monkey. Again, thank you for participating in the revolution and using the bad Fountain UX. It's much appreciated.
Usually double Fountain boosts like this, we just call it proof of bad UX.
Proof of revolution.
Proof of POR.
That sounds
and then the last boost is from none other than the dude who looks bad user experience in the face every single day and says, you're not going to discourage me today with your shitty user experience because what's his name? David Goggins. He wakes up and he says, it's snowing outside. Good. I'm going for a run. It's raining outside. Don't give a shit. Going for a run. Pies gets on a new platform meant for peer-to-peer, value for value exchange of information and content. No matter how bad user experience is, Pies says, good. I'm going to figure out how to use you.
Pies is the man, as always. But that wraps up the boost for the show today. You got any final closing thoughts?
No, I think it's just we had a good conversation today and something to think about with who, Catholics are going through. It's not just Bitcoiners, it's everybody. Catholics are, the Pope he's in critical condition. The Pope could die any day. So the number one simp of the Christian, the number one person that Christians simp is, they're at sleep. Their heroes are going to be slayed. And we have to slay our heroes as well and start to have a lower time preference about our relationship with the powerful actors of the state who we are now inevitably coming into contact with and having to navigate and search for regulatory clarity. It's time to stop simping somebody just because they have access to more regulatory clarity than you, and they have access to more fiat than you. And it's time to start being unafraid of calling them retarded when they're being retarded, letting them know. That's value for value.
Time to be a man. Time to have a six-pack. Time to post pictures of yourself shirtless on Twitter so more women come into the space. Well, thank you for tuning into this edition of the Bugle Weekly, and we will catch you next week.
And now, one last piece of dating advice from Maggie Morris.
Hello. My wife has been complaining about me putting on sailor interviews when we have sex. The problem is, I can't get hard without it. Does that mean I'm secretly gay? My wife says it turns her off so much, and that she would prefer Dennis Porter or Lynn Alden interviews. What should I do?
Hey, I appreciate you sending this question. Actually, I'm getting a lot of questions about this recently. This has been a growing problem, and we call this MSED, which means Michael Saylor Erectile Dysfunction. What happens is that libertarian men project their male virility onto Saylor due to the size of his leveraged position and the conviction he displays. But the truth is, as we've covered extensively, that Michael is a closeted CIA asset, and none of his actions are his own. Michael Saylor is not his own man. You are much more of a man than Michael Saylor ever was. And the risks that you've been taking are much bigger than any risk Michael has ever taken. And your masculinity is many folds higher. And that's what you need to tell yourself until you believe it. And when you know it, your wife will see it too. And she wants to listen to no Lynn Alden. She'll be demanding complete silence in no time. Even if you're holding just 0.05 Bitcoin with conviction, you're still much more of a man than Michael Saylor. Because you're real and he's fake. And it's much harder to be real than fake.
Orange pill dear leader Kim Jong don't need a chair No pseudonym That's no me air No spook can touch him Always prepared Oh yeah Zach XBT Nah Lazarus group don't care Oh yeah Miss me with that coin join shit Big yikes Don't need payment splits We just transmit Send deck swap submit Oh yeah Think Bitcoin is slow What Nowhere to go Find a block like whoa Nation state adoption yo XMR That's no Cause we bad. Time preference lower than you. Time preference lower than you. We can hold all together through the fog of war. We can hold all together until the West is no more. When they ask, does Kim shit coin? We just reply, no. Incentives aligned. Snap. In defiance of feds. Damn. Redeem Bitcoin in kind. Oh yeah. Assign our own creds. Boom. Korea will shine while rule of law shreds. The South will be Kim's. It belongs to the Nims. And we tell you what we're doing. The ledger is public. The feds are pursuing while we build a republic. XMR. That's no. ZK. That's no. Privacy. pilled girls. Bang, 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 all around the world. Bang, 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 40 hours per week, got their hair all twirled. Orange pilled girls. Bang, 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 all around the world.